This is our Maker Box project. It is a tray you can display out on your living room table, wherever you want. So it is such a cool design. So this little top frame piece you can just kind of set to the side for right now. Then you're gonna have a bottom piece that you really don't even do anything with other than it's the base. So you do not have to paint the bottom piece. You got some little leaves that are separated, and then you're gonna lift this up, and this looks like this. And I'm gonna show you what we're gonna do with it. So be patient with that. Then you're gonna take these other little rectangular type pieces that form the tray, including this tiny little one that's up here by the stem of the pumpkin. So up here by the stem of the pumpkin, you've got some pieces that are the pumpkin, but then there's this one little odd shaped piece. This one needs to come out with these rectangular type pieces, okay? That is part of the tray design in the background. And then one little piece on the bottom that looks like this. You see a little, almost looks like a state, like it'd be in a map. Okay, so all those go up there together. All the leaves, including the big one attached to the pumpkin, can go together because we're gonna paint them the same. The stem is all off on its own. And then we're gonna tape our pumpkin pieces down just to make it easier to paint those, okay? So let's get those painted and done. So I'm gonna tape them down first. So we got our outside, our middle, our edge, our two tiny little pieces. They're like really little, okay? We're just gonna put those off to the side up here. It's kind of hard to figure out how to tape those just because they're so tiny. And then keep going around. And actually, I think I'm gonna put one little strip up here for all the tiny pieces to go onto, because it's a little more representative of how it lays out on the board also. Because this goes like this, and this goes like this, something like that. Okay, so lay that out. Then, like I said, the back piece, you don't have to do anything with that. So just really put that to the side, okay? So we're gonna do our pumpkin real quick, and then I'm gonna move it. You can do it in whatever order you want, okay? So now I'm gonna take one of my sponges that I used before. See how it's got green on that end? I'm gonna just flip it around. You could also take this and just cut that little green part off, okay? So that is the great part of doing these projects and using these sponges. You can keep using them. So I'm now going to use this to do my orange on my pumpkin. So I'm dipping in there, scraping off all the excess there. This is a bigger area. So I do want a bigger area than my white sponge. It would take us forever if we were just trying to hop on this, and it's just not necessary. So I'm just going to go along and do my pumpkin pieces. After I do some of the bigger pieces, that's when I do my little pieces while I don't have a ton of paint on my sponge. But you're just gonna keep pushing that paint out, rubbing it into the wood until it's not shiny, okay? Make sure it's nice and smooth, not shiny on there, okay? And then do all your pieces like that. So this is another puzzly project, but it's not such big pieces this time. I mean, such little pieces. Opposite, strike that, opposite. So it does move a lot quicker than that other one, especially if you just finished the Sign of the Month project. If you're a Gotta Have It member or a combo club member, and you're doing all the projects, you know that one took us a little bit. Took us a little bit of time to do that. So now on your pumpkin, you're gonna decide whether or not you want 2 coats of paint, okay? That is up to you. I am gonna let it dry for a little bit while I'm thinking about it. I'm gonna paint my leaves. You can take those down also. And I probably should have not used my green sponge. but I just grabbed the first one that was available. So I am gonna take them down because things just don't move as much and stay a little more where they need to be. So I am gonna use green now. So I'm trying to think of, I think I did use the yellow. So I'm gonna take my red one and turn it upside down now for my green. But it's hindsight, I should have done it the other way, but it's okay. It still works. So just scrape off that excess and paint everywhere on those green. I love this color. We don't use it often. It has its purposes. Definitely has projects that it looks better on. Fall projects are definitely one of those. I got a little bit of excess on here. The way I combated that is kind of dabbing it on the others, but you just want to make sure you're rubbing that paint out so it's smooth and has a nice even coverage. That's the important part. Put it out. Okay. And I am going to do one more coat on this orange. I just feel like it needs a little bit more. I'm seeing quite a bit through. And it has almost a look of as if I did it with orange stain. So I'm seeing a lot of the wood grain. If you like that look, by all means, just go for it. I mean, it's still pretty cool looking. For me, I think I wanted a little bit more coverage on it. So it could be a one coat, but I'm gonna do two. See, I'm kind of tapping off on the side just because this little sponge is harder to get some of the excess off sometimes, and I don't want it to be overdone. So it's just an easy way to do that. I think this piece of wood is kind of cool because it's got a little brown spot. It almost looks like a natural knot in the pumpkin. Gives a little extra, okay? And then for my stem, I did a little combo. I did green on the outside edge. Let me double check on my sample here to make sure I am remembering. Yeah, that's easy. So on the stem part, I did the green. It's a very olive green. Love it. But it's not everyone's favorite, and it's definitely got particular uses, and I think on this project it is so striking. While I have that green sponge, I'm going to give another coat to my leaves here. Usually second coat goes even a little bit faster because it's already primed, you know, with that first coat of paint. Oh, these leaves are so pretty. So on these leaves, you could accent with the yellow like we did before if you wanted to, using the same technique of the sponging. But I'm going to show you what I did on this, and I think it's really pretty, especially on this project. As we put this tray together, you'll see it. It's real pretty. So this on, and then I'm going to go back with my yellow. That's why I didn't use the yellow. And my stem of my pumpkin, I'm going to start with this yellow. Just because I don't want to use straight up brown. I want to give it a different look. So it does have score lines in it, which are super cool looking, especially with this, the way we're painting this. Okay, so everything's got their paints. A little bit more on that piece of orange. And now we're gonna do a little bit different distressing. So I'm gonna use the stain to add some dimension to this pumpkin so it doesn't look just flat, okay? So I'm gonna take my big sponge and I'm actually gonna pour some of this stain out. And I went crazy. I want it on the whole edge of this sponge, and I'm kind of tapping off the extra. I don't want it to be saturated. You do not want a lot. You want it to be almost like a dry brush look to it. But I'm just gonna rub that right on the edge of my piece. So I'm just going right there like that. And you almost don't notice it too much when you're just holding your piece like this, unless you do that, which is a little crazy. But when you start putting them together like the puzzle that they are, you're gonna really see the difference and the dimension that adds just by going along the edge of your piece. So this is a real good technique on some of these puzzle pieces if you want to add a little aging to it or distressing of a different type. So we're not doing that distress all over. We're just doing right along the edge. And it can even go in a little bit, that's okay. You'll kind of do it, you'll see what you like, but it's just, hopefully you can see this little technique here, because it's very subtle when you're actually doing it. Use a dry sponge to kind of dry it out. It's hard to show you and do it at the same time, but there. So each piece, it's almost like putting a shadow on the outside edge. Which adds so much dimension to this piece. So there, you can see it now a little bit better. But I'm doing that around each piece, and I'm just going around the outside edges of all of my pumpkin piece. You could also just go down like this, if that's easier for you. I like to rub around the piece, and that way I kind of go up on the top of it. And then even in some places you can like take the edge of the sponge and do like that, and then go back with your dry part of your sponge and just kind of rub that out, and then it really adds some more dimension. So just depends on how much dimension you want to add into these pieces, and kind of give a little accent to it. I do follow on this piece that has the leaf cut out on it. I do go around that little part too, just because that would be where a natural shadow is. So. One more big piece, and I do a little bit on the little pieces, but you don't have to go crazy with those because they're tiny, you know. But definitely go around all the little edges, right where there'll be some more shadow where something's butted up against it. And then on these pieces, I leave them on the paper and then just go right along the edge a little bit. And they can have a little bit more because they're kind of at the top where the pumpkin kind of caves in, and so it'd be a little more shadowed anyway. So if you want to add a little bit more in those areas, go for it. Okay, so that's those. We are going to do the same thing, except on the stem, I'm going to do pretty much everywhere on the stem with this oak stain right on top of that yellow. And it just gives a little bit different color to it. So now it's got that kind of there. You can just leave it yellow though if you prefer that. And I'm doing the same thing with my leaves. The only difference is, pour a little bit more of the stain out. It's easier to get because that can is so little with the stain, because you don't need as much stain. But go along, do your leaves on the outside edges, just like we did before with the pumpkin pieces. But then I like to take the edge of my sponge and just go right up where some of the veins are, especially the bigger veins, and then go back with the dry sponge and kind of dry it out some. You don't want it to be crazy. You don't want to overdo it. Just adding some dimension to your project. Some here at the base of the leaf is good, because that's, you know, a natural place where it'd be a little bit darker. think about nature once again. It's been kind of the theme of this box. How does it look in nature? So it is storming outside. I think it just finally stopped. So we went through a little storm here while I'm doing this box. Definitely feeling a little more fall-like. Things got dark. It got darker. It's cooled down a little bit. It just knows I'm doing fall up in here, so it wants to give me that fall vibe to the evening. And there we go. Okay, so leaves are done. And it's hard to see here on the camera, but when you're doing it, you'll just notice it just takes it to that next level. Like, so is it a have to do step? No. Are you gonna like it if you do it? Yes. So just depends on how involved you want to get with your project, you know, so it's up to you. So we got our leaves done, so I'm gonna put those out of the way, our pumpkin stem out of the way, our little pieces of pumpkin, and then I'm gonna move our big piece of pumpkin because I'm gonna make room for our tray now. So that is all the way up there. Let's get this over here out of the way, scooch everything, scooch. That orange out of the way. Okay, so we're gonna start with this piece. Remember this piece I was telling you about? Okay, so make sure it is facing the right way up. The back will have a little bit more charred marks. You'll be able to tell, so make sure it's facing the right way. That's very important once we start doing our puzzling part of this, okay? So I'm gonna clean my hands off a little bit so I don't get paint colors everywhere on my stain. Okay, now we are going to use our stain in two different ways here. So we're getting down here into our oak stain. So the first one, we're just gonna put this on the traditional way, straight on with the sponge, spreading it out till it is not gooped up anywhere. You want a nice thin layer everywhere. You'll notice if it's streaky and you need to spread that stain further because it will look different. It will look streaky. If it looks streaky, it needs to spread more. If it looks blended in, then you're doing good. So stains definitely, you know, traditional staining, when you do like staining furniture, you're gonna, come on out there. So with the traditional stain, you're going to put it on with one cloth and then wipe it off with a dry cloth. We're not doing it quite like that, but sort of the same concept. So, because we're just moving it farther along, okay? We're just gonna move it along farther. We're not putting it on, letting it set, and then deepening that stain. So now we're gonna go, I'm gonna pick up all this excess that I've got on the table and we're gonna do a second coat on this. And the reason is that I'm trying to create two different colors of stains so that you see a difference in it almost looks like a different texture. You can definitely tell that there's different pieces on these little inset pieces that we're doing. So we are going to go along here. Second coat is optional. If you've gotten a nice, good, thick first coat and you like the way it looks, then leave it. You could also do a alternated oak stain and black stain inset. I just did the two oaks because I think it looks classic, and I just like the look of it. So, but you do have some options here. But this whole piece gets painted one way. And I did the two coats of stain on it. Because you have variations. Now, we have a few more pieces over here, all these little miscellaneous pieces, and you're looking at them and you're like, those pieces look very random, and they are kind of random. But it's how the puzzle works of this piece. So, Now we are going to do a different technique, and you know, if you've been a MakerBox member for a while, you've probably seen us do this, but we're going to use a wet wipe, and we have our red sanitizing wipes here. They're not red, but they come in a red package, so we always call them that red wipe. So we have our little sanitizing wipe. You can use baby wipe at home, or if you have some of these type of wipes, you can use that too. You need to get it so that you can get down into this little container here to get some on your wipe, and then you're going to spread it with that wipe. And what this does is it gives you a lighter coat, so you still have the oak stain, but it's just put on lighter, okay? And that's how you're going to get that different look. You'll see as we put this together and have different looks. Okay. I think that looks amazing. I will test it to this and say, yep, one is definitely darker than the other. I may even do a little bit, some of this wood on this has, it's kind of resisting the stain. That happens sometimes. Sometimes the woods will do that, so you can go back in and add a little bit more just to darken this piece up to add a little bit more contrast. Kind of see how it looks, what you think. That outside edge you're going to not see as much of, so I'm saving all my stain for this inside portion. But honestly, this is the part you will notice it because it's just a cool effect, but the pumpkin is the standout here. So let's get this cleaned up. I would say you might want to paint the bottom of your tray if you want it to look a little more finished, but that would just be the bottom of that bottom piece. Remember I told you you could just set this to the side, so you can paint the bottom of this if you want, or you could even turn this side up because you're not going to see it, so that the nicer, cleaner side is what is the bottom. So I'm just going to put that down there now. This gets glued onto here, so you want to make sure it is dry. Mine's pretty dry. So I'm just putting a real thin layer. I am doing it all the way around, a real thin layer on this, and then some dots on these other pieces because I want this to hold together well, this little strap. It doesn't need to, you don't need a whole lot in any one place. I'm just trying to get glue everywhere. So this just goes right on that. And then we start doing our puzzle. I think this is such a cool project. Just holding this down for a little bit, just to make sure it is all placed. And then each piece is going to get glued down separately for your frame. Very thin lines and amounts of glue. It's pretty obvious which piece goes where. If you're not sure, take your time before you put glue on it to figure that out. But I've put this tray together a few times and it's pretty simple. Even though these pieces are very odd shaped. It's just because they got a pumpkin in the middle of it. So now these little pieces I save, okay? So next thing I like to put in is my stem. Let's see, this is kind of popping up. I'm just trying to get this done quick for you guys so you can see how the finished product goes together. If I was doing this for myself, I would set for a little bit and let this kind of set for a little bit, maybe even with some weight on it, just so, to make sure that you get a really good base and that everything is stuck down good. So just giving a little bit right now, especially if you're doing the wood glue, you definitely want to glue this part down good before you move on, just so that everything fits together well. So now we got our little stem that I like to put in next. Putting little dots on here. I am gonna go in and tap that excess glue off though, and then Pop that in and it fits right in the hole there. And now it's time for our pumpkin pieces. You could actually do your leaf next too. Ooh. This is when you really start seeing all of that distressing we did with the oak pop on this, because it just really stands out. Okay, I usually start in the middle because it fits a certain way, and then it kind of builds the form of everything else. So some dots on that, and it will fit, it fits a certain exact way, and then the next piece over attaches to the leaf. I do like to do these tiny little pieces that stick out just to make sure they get stuck down good. And that slips right in there. It's such a cool puzzle. Prettiest puzzle you'll do. A little bit on that end. Oh, there we go. Okay. Pop that in. Isn't this one so much faster than the other one? I think this is like, it just moves so quickly because it's big pieces. I mean, we had a really tedious, very cool, but lots of little piece project for the last one. So this one is like, I got a big reward for it. Seems like a little bit of effort because it is such a cool design. The only thing we're gonna have after we get this glued in left to do is paint our frame. And then, like I said, if you wanna paint the back. Now, this is when I go in and I do all these little pieces, okay? So, and now I'm gonna swap to the put it in here method of gluing because that just becomes easier. So follow the shape, get that little piece in there, and then you just have your little pumpkin pieces left to put in. Figure those out if you're not exactly sure, if you've lost track of which goes where. But you see, there is a little bit of give to some of these pieces. It's not a super tight fit. It's a close fit, but not a tight fit. Enough to give a little space in between, but it also makes it so that things go together really well. And then after that, we're just going to stain this. I use the classic black stain to do this. Once again, do what you want. You really liking the green and you want to carry that green on, that would be striking too, to have this as a green frame. I'm about ready to get this black all over my fingernails again. That is maker life right there, I'll tell you. Wow, it's amazing how quick we did this one compared to the last one. And it's such a beautiful project. And I think that you guys will get a lot of use out of this. It can be a little serving tray. It can be just a little tray on your table. Put a candle up on it. I think that would be really pretty with just like a pumpkin scented candle or any fall scents. I love fall scented candles. They're so nice. But set that out on your table. Have that little candle burning. Oh, so pretty. I might take this home and sample that out. See what that's like. Okay. Just gonna clean this black off of here so I don't get it on everything. Now black under my nails. Okay. All right. Set that to the side, and then this gets glued on. I am gonna do it this way because it's still a little bit wet. I do want to put a nice thin bead around this whole thing. So it's really very thin. It is not thick, but it is everywhere just because this is the top of the tray. And you know, it's what you're going to be lifting it up with and all of that. So you want to have a good layer of glue, not thick though. Just make sure it's not thick, but go all the way around it good with the wood glue or the Star Bond. I'm gonna, come back. I'm gonna hold it up so you can see it, but then I'm gonna set it over here with, there we are. So there's where you can see the two different ways that the oak looks. So we've got it lighter and darker by using different techniques of putting it on. And now this wants to stick weird because I lifted it too early. Don't do that. Do as I say, not as I do. But I'm gonna move this and I'm gonna put some weight on it to let it dry out. Okay, so I'm gonna show you the finished sample already again. So that is our Maker Box project. So the other thing you can do is you do have 2 additional leaves here. You can choose whether or not you want to attach those and put those in the corners or not. It does set right on top, so you see it's got some extra dimension there. So that's completely up to you. It is an option. We went ahead and included them in there, but you choose whether or not you want to put them in there. That is your Maker Box for July.